Hello everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review House of Cards. And I've watched the first 2 seasons a while ago, and I finally just watched the last 4 seasons over the past couple weeks, and finally reached the end of the OG Netflix show. And this is obviously a very controversial show at this point, but we'll get to that. But things starting, Fincher. David Fincher directed the very beginning of the show, and you could feel Fincher all over it. This feels like a Fincher show, like what a Fincher show would feel like up until the last season, and even really keeps that aesthetic of David Fincher's films. There's a grittiness, there's a groundedness, there's a darkness, there's a desaturatedness about things, and it very much captures that from the way that he brings about filmmaking and suspense building. This show features a lot of fourth wall breaking and Frank Underwood just talking right to the camera in that southern drawl that Kevin Spacey brings to this role. And as the series goes on and kind of transitioning into Claire, Robin Wright, who starts talking towards the camera as the show refocuses who's really the main focus of the show, I feel like this show is one that really grabs the audience and never lets go. And you have the Underwoods, and Francis Underwood is a despicable, diabolical, conniving, and endlessly watchable tyrant of a character that it's so hard to look away, especially when he starts talking right to you. And then you have, I feel like, over the course of this series, Claire becomes so interesting as well, and their dynamic in the 3rd, 4th, 5th season becomes so compelling. But then, I feel like we'll get to the 6th season, but I feel like the 6th season ruins so much of the show. But the thing is, because here's the thing, switching to acting, Kevin Spacey, obviously did horrible, horrible, horrible things. And what Netflix decided to do, is kill off Frank Underwood to try to get away from having Kevin Spacey finishing out the show. You don't realize, I guess, until he's gone, how important his presence was to the show. And Kevin Spacey is an incredible actor. Despicable human being, but an incredible actor. And what he brings to this character brings so many layers and depth to what could easily just be an evil, evil villain. But you can't help but appreciate the game that he plays. And this really is like a Game of Thrones. It really feels that way. And his presence is sorely missed when he's not in the last season. Robin Wright gives such a great performance as well. And I don't know, it's just something doesn't click as you get to the last season. But up to that point, she was a force to be reckoned with too. And the two of them together, playing off each other, and then as the series goes on, deceiving each other, just played off so well. This show hits way too close to home, especially in our political climate today. The way that this show captures the games that politicians play with us, the regular people of America, is so deplorable, but so on point. And is just pitch perfect of the experience that Americans are feeling right now. And these politicians and how they play everything. And obviously this goes leaps and bounds beyond, and having murders and cover-ups. And at the point where they started setting up, scaring the populace to get them to think that we're under threat of terrorist attacks. And I feel like it jumps the shark in the last season where it really goes way too far with it. But it deals with the geopolitical issues with Russia. And Lars Mikkelsen is a great does such a great contribution to this show as the president of Russia throughout of quite a few of these seasons. And he's such a great counterpart to play off of Spacey and Wright. And you have the competition between Democrats and Republicans. It's very clear. This captures American politics so well. The whole campaign between like Joel Kinnaman's character and Frank Underwood really captures the dichotomy of Democrat versus Republicans. And you have like the media and how that plays into things. You have fixers and all these different kinds of things, lobbyists and pushing for all kinds of agendas. This show is provocative. It is crazy. It's sexy and weird and just wraps you into so much that it's hard to process at times just how much the show is doing to you all at once. And there's tons of suspense and tension around every curve, and it always has you on your toes. There's a mystery about this show and the intentions, and I don't know, it's so satisfying finding out what the plan was, and when that carpet rug gets ripped out from under you, and you're just like, whoa, what the hell happened here? And you have Doug, who, played by Michael Kelly, who is such a great supporting actor in this show, who is basically the fixer and the right-hand man of Frank Underwood. And he is such a key piece to this show. And all the way up until the very end, like the very end of this show. And he becomes such a big part. But this cast... So I'm honestly just going to have to start reading off a bunch of people here. So like, you have, throughout this series... I'm just reading off of IMDb, honestly, and this is organized by appearance. You have, like, Derek Cecil, who plays Seth, who's the press secretary, him playing all these kinds of things. Jayne Atkinson, who's Durant, who's the Secretary of State. She had so much to do in this. And Mahershala Ali as Remy, who's such a great addition here, is like that lobbyist and, like, that outer rim type of presence. Boris McGiver, who plays... Tom Hammerschmidt, the big journalist in this show, who's always trying to take down the Underwoods. Paul Sparks as Tom Yates, the writer, who has such an interesting dynamic with, like, the sexual dynamics of the Underwoods is so weird and so provocative and so interesting, and how they each have their own lovers and want to share some of them. Like, Meacham is such a great character in this show, this the Secret Service agent. But like, you have, I'm just going to run off names like Molly Parker as Jackie Sharp, Nev Campbell as Leanne Harvey was a great addition, Michael Gill, who was President Garrett Walker at the beginning of the series. You have Elizabeth Marvel, who played Dunbar, who was one of his Frank's competition. And just going through this show, and like right from the start with this show grabs you in the beginning of the second season with what it winds up doing with a character, which you have Kate Mara in this show in that first season, and what they wind up doing with that character. You have Gerald Mcraney as Raymond Tusk, who's such a great supporting character. I already mentioned Joel Kinnaman. Reggie, Kathy as Freddie, which is such an interesting racial dynamic in the show. Corey Stoll as Peter Russo. Just Patricia Clarkson and Nicole Fiore just going on and on and on. The amount of people that are in this show is off the charts. This cast is amazing. This is such a compelling series. And then, bam, this last season felt so, I don't know. And like, I felt bad because they had the introduction of, you know, you have Greg Kinnear and Diane Lane as his brother-sister Shepherd's combo, and I don't know, everything about the last season just felt like it went way too far. It jumped the shark. It was really missing Frank as a presence, and like it ended in like the most unbelievable, over-the-top kind of like Greek tragedy. And like I felt like it makes me think how this series should have ended. And I don't even know, honestly, but I just feel like something was missing about the last season. But that doesn't spoil the other 5 because it's some of the most compelling television I think I've ever watched. But House of Cards, crazy experience. Obviously, it's on Netflix. It's one of the OG like pillars of Netflix. So, my thoughts, go check this series out. The 5 seasons, and kind of feel like you have to finish it. But those are my thoughts on House of Cards. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.